This April 1st Unsafe Building Hearing Authority meeting to order at 5:09 p.m. Would all who are able to please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bill Manasopoulos.
Here.
Justin Nestor.
Present.
Nico Vlahos.
Here.
Ricardo Hall.
Here.
John Gill.
Here.
Tim Arvanitis.
Here.
Ashley Abernathy, present. First order of business, we need election of officers. I will open the floor for nomination for president of the Unsafe Building Hearing Authority.
I'd like to nominate Justin Nestor for president.
I have a nomination for Justin Nestor. Any other nominations?
I second that.
I have a second for Justin Nestor. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Congratulations, Mr. Nestor, on being the president of the Unsafe Hearing Authority. I will pass the rest of the meeting over to you.
Thank you. Item B, is there a nomination for vice president of the Unsafe Building Hearing Authority?
I'd like to nominate Nick Vlahos.
Nomination by Mr. Manasopoulos. Is there a second?
You can second.
It's just us? Okay. Normally I don't get to. And then I will second that. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Agenda item number 5, old and new business. Item A, to consider a potential emergency order concerning 9535 Joliet Street, St. John, Indiana.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, members of the board. We're here this evening essentially to consider what we would characterize as a need for emergency action relative to the property in question, that specifically being 9535 Joliet Street. And I think at the end, it would be our position that the Indiana statutes in question really would have permitted the town to just take the emergency action to cure or remedy the hazard that we believe exists. But this convening this meeting really before the authority is an additional step given the circumstances and the history that's involved with the individual in question who owned the property. So this is sort of an additional step in the process out of an abundance of caution, and we can entertain questions in that regard from the board as matters go on, but we do have a couple of individuals here this evening who would testify as to the nature and extent of the emergency that exists, and we are prepared to move on along those lines at this time if it pleases the board.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, the first witness would be John Gill. I don't know whether Mr. Gill would need to be sworn. But okay.
This is my first one.
Yeah.
I don't know if this board is authorized to administer an oath.
Yeah, well, there is authority granted by statute and as adopted by the town ordinance 1838. I can distribute some packets here that include the exhibits that we would intend to introduce today, with the first of which is the proposed orders on the top, but the first exhibit would be the ordinance that gives the authority the permission to hear matters such as this and make rulings. believe it's Exhibit A, is the ordinance that was adopted by the town pursuant to Indiana statute. So paragraph 3 of the proposed order, for instance, references the fact that the hearing authority may find it necessary to take emergency action concerning an unsafe premises in order to protect life, safety, and property, and so on and so forth. It just sets out, the proposed order sets out and cites the statutory provisions that empowers the authority.
Attorney Hall, are you anticipating that Mr. Gill will testify here right now, or?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I can go ahead and administer an oath then. I'd rather do that out of an abundance of caution as opposed to not doing it. So if you want to raise your right hand for me. Solemnly swear the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hall,
Okay,
please
thank
proceed.
you. Good evening. Would you state your name for the record, please?
John Gill.
And what is your occupation?
I am the building commissioner for the town of St. John.
And what are your duties in that capacity?
Administer permits, review permits for code compliance, inspect residential and commercial projects for code compliance.
Okay. And in your capacity as the affiliation with the Town Building Commission, did you have the occasion to inspect property located at 9535 Juliet Street here in the town of St. John following a fire at the home at that address?
Yes, I did.
And that fire would have been in sometime within the past month at least. When was your inspection?
We were out there several times. Most recently Monday the 31st, and I believe March 26th was when I inspected it to write the report that I submitted.
Okay. And what did you observe when you went out to the property?
I observed a single-family home surrounded by caution tape that was mostly burned, with debris scattered about the yard, and a few walls and a gable end still standing after the fire.
Have you done this sort of inspection before?
This was my first one for a home that burned.
Okay. And in your, strike that, how recent have you been out to the premises? When was the last time?
Yesterday I was on the premises.
And based on what you observed yesterday, would you, how would you characterize the condition of the property?
The condition is unsafe, uninhabitable, and there's imminent danger of the rubble being moved around by the wind. There's already evidence of rubble being deposited alongside the railroad tracks to the east of the property, and the remaining gable end is leaning from Plum towards the east.
Did you observe any condition that you determined would pose an immediate danger to persons?
Yes, there is a danger of collapse with the remaining walls that are standing on there.
And you mentioned that you prepared a report.
Yes.
I'd like to point to what's been marked for the members of the authority, what's been marked as exhibit, I believe it's B in the packet that you received. And let me approach. I'll show you what's been marked previously as Exhibit B. Is that the report that you're referring to?
Yes, that is my report.
Okay. So that report is identified as Exhibit B, and we would move to enter that into evidence at this point. There's no objection from the authority.
Without any objection, and subject to any cross-examination of Mr. Gill that might occur, it's admitted.
Okay. And along those lines, I referenced the ordinance adopted by the town pursuant to Indiana statute. That's been marked as Exhibit A in the packets that the authority has, and we would also move to enter that into evidence.
Without any objection, and I think the ordinance probably speaks for itself, but it's admitted.
Okay. So, Mr. Gill, what is your position as to the action that needs to be taken relative to the property?
I believe the rubble needs to be cleaned up and hauled away before it can become airborne from winds and storms. And I believe the remainder of the home needs to come down as well because of the collapse risk, where you could see the structural walls are burned through on the studs. So there's really no structural integrity left in the walls or the gable end that are standing.
Okay, and how soon do you believe that that action needs to be taken?
I believe it should be done as soon as possible.
Would you characterize it, the situation that exists as an emergency?
I would say it is an emergency.
Has the town obtained any estimate or proposal of work to cure or remedy the hazard that exists?
Yes, there is a quote from Holland Asphalt Services Incorporated.
Okay. Right. Again, have you seen that exhibit? Or have you seen that proposal or estimate?
I have seen the proposal, yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit C, is that copy of the exhibit?
Yes,
Or
that
proposal?
is what I've seen, yes.
Members of the authority, is what's been in your packet marked as Exhibit C. We would move to offer that into evidence, Exhibit C.
Without objection and subject to any cross-examination, it's admitted.
Okay, and what is, just for the record, what is the amount of the proposed cost from Holland Asphalt?
$22,780.
Okay. All right, so you're asking this authority for, to grant an order allowing the town to take action to cure the hazard that exists as soon as possible, and that could be at the cost of $22,780?
Yes.
I have no further questions at this time for Mr. Gill.
All right, I don't believe that, there's no one else here, so I don't believe the homeowner has any questions for you, Mr. Gill, so with that, you would be excused. Mr. Hall, any other witnesses?
Yes, we do have one other witness, Mr. Arvanitis, who perhaps would be sworn in.
Raise your right hand for me, please. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Hall, proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you state your name, full name for the record, please?
Timothy Allen Arvanitis.
And what is your occupation?
I am the code enforcement officer for the town of St. John.
And how long have you been the code enforcement officer?
Since June 4th, 2024.
And have you had the opportunity to inspect the property that we've been talking about here today?
Before the fire and after the fire, yes.
Now, after the fire, how many times have you inspected the property?
Just the once. I took the photos of the damage to the home and the property itself.
All right, so I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit D. Ask you to take a look at those and see if you recognize it.
Sir, I do recognize this as the property as
Okay.
presented. Yes, sir.
And do those photographs accurately depict the condition of the property when you visited it after the fire?
They do.
Members of the authority, we would ask that, with reference to Exhibit D, which is the photos Mr. Arvanitis just referred to, be admitted into evidence.
Without objection, they are admitted.
Okay. No other witnesses at this time?
Okay. I think at this point, it's probably appropriate to see if, call out Thomas Parada, if you'd like to come up, present your case. Going once, going twice. With that, there'll be no other witnesses. Mr. Parada's not here to present a case.
If I might just say one more thing out of the, as an attorney, I have a duty to be fully forthcoming with the information available. So the action that we're taking here today is pursuant to the emergency provisions of the unsafe building law. And the authority has the code provisions there, it can review. But those provisions say that if a bona fide emergency exists, danger to persons, property exists, the town does not need an order or to give notice. It can go out and say, individuals are going to be hurt and harmed if we don't take action. We are going to take this action right now, and then, be that as it may. If it decides to convene a hearing before the authority, the statute says a hearing notice needs to be given of the hearing 10 days in advance. I said to you at the beginning of this hearing, however, that we believe that an emergency exists based on the testimony that you've heard here today. Given the history of this property and the individual involved as associated with this property, we thought that it would be prudent to go the extra step, if you will, and do what we don't believe the statute requires us to do, which is to convene and have you guys, an independent body, hear the evidence and make a determination as to whether a bona fide emergency exists and whether the estimated cost for curing that emergency is reasonable. So those are the two things you have to decide. If an emergency exists, then we believe, again, we didn't need to go through this. But if, the cost that we have put forth today, there's no evidence rebutting it, we believe it's reasonable, given the research and the efforts that the town has made. But that's for the authority to decide. I wanted you just to know, because Mr. Prada isn't here, and whether or not he's received notice of this hearing is anyone's guess. But,
Well, let me just, that was going to get to the point that I was going to make. I understand that notwithstanding what this hearing authority decides about what you're asking for, your position is that the town has authority under state statute to do that anyway, correct?
yes, if an emergency exists, the town, can do that.
What efforts were made to provide Mr. Parada notice of this hearing? Because that's what my concern is, that it's, was he provided to have proper notice of the hearing to be here?
I would have
A
to,
notice of this meeting and the agenda were posted to the town's website and the town's clerk's Facebook page in accordance with open door policy of notification of meeting.
And is there anything under state statute or town ordinance that provides, I want to make sure we're following our own rules, that provides a notice requirement of the hearing to the affected property owner?
again, if, given what we heard about the debris and all that sort, and if a bona fide emergency exists, then we didn't have to provide him or anyone else with notice or seek an order from the authority. The town could have just gone out and taken care of what it perceived as a bona fide imminent emergency, danger. And I'm bringing this up because you have to make the decision based on what you've heard. Does a bona fide emergency exist? It's sort of a tricky situation, because if an emergency exists, the town doesn't have to seek an order, doesn't have to seek your approval. So this is sort of an additional step. However, I think based on, if you determine, an independent body, that an emergency doesn't exist, presumably the town would take that under consideration and then take whatever steps it needs to.
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree with that. My concern is that this proceeding is being done properly, so any action that we might order doesn't get undone on judicial review.
Yeah, and as far as the notice to, I would have to ask Mr. Gill, since he's the only one who's under oath right now, unless we put Ms. Abernathy under oath and have her testify. Would you?
I would be amenable to that if that is the direction of the board.
Okay. Then we would call.
I just want to make sure we have our ducks in a row here. Okay. Ms. Abernathy, raise your hand. solemnly swear to give the truth, testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please proceed.
Ms. Abernathy, what notice, if any, was provided relative to today's hearing?
The notice that was crafted and provided today was a notice of meeting that is required by state statute for open door policies, posted a minimum of 48 hours prior to the meeting, and it was provided to the clerk's office for publication on Friday, March 28th at 12:33 p.m. It was published then on the town's website for a meeting notice, as well as on the clerk treasurer's Facebook page.
So, based on that testimony, I guess we can say that notice of this hearing was given pursuant to the Open Door Act. But that brings us back to the extent to which notice was given of the hearing pursuant to the Unsafe Property Act.
Okay.
Sounds like we have notice, proper notice of this hearing, but the purpose of the hearing is what I was alluding to earlier when I mentioned the 10 days.
So, I mean, my opinion, and I'm just one of three, but with the evidence that was entered in by the town, Tim, Ashley, and John, I think we can deem it an emergency and move forward with whatever corrective actions, corrective actions that need to be taken to fix the problem out there.
Okay. Do we need that styled as a motion, or, I mean, we've been tendered with the proposed order, findings of fact.
And it would be, we would move, the town would move to have the authority adopt the order as proposed, or it could be amended, but we've tendered what we hope would be entered as an order, an emergency action.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion for approval of the order so tendered by the town.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the order as presented.
Motion by Mr. Manisopoulos. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Flowers. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay,
Anything further?
nothing further.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that the board had the original, well, you have copies of the exhibits there in the packet.
Yeah, I'll need a clean copy of the order if we're going to sign it, because I marked mine up. All right, we'll deal with that after. So that's all for older new business. Item 6, public comment. Any members of the public who'd like to come up and speak? Going once, twice, 3 times. Item 7, adjournment. Motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.